Earth was quiet for the first time in 1,000 years. No bombs fell from the sky. No soldiers marched across burned fields. No mothers cried for sons who would never come home. President Jake Morrison stood at his office window and watched children play in the park below. Their laughter reached him through the glass, and he smiled. It had taken 50 years to build this peace. 50 years of hard work, smart choices, and people who refused to give up hope. The wars were over. Hunger was gone. Disease could not touch them anymore. Every person on Earth had a home, food, and a chance to be happy. Jake turned from the window and looked at the message on his desk. It came from Captain Lisa Bennett, who commanded the USS Horizon far out in space. Her ship was humanity's pride, the first vessel built only for peace. No guns, no missiles, just science equipment, medical supplies, and hope for what they might find among the stars. The message was short, but exciting. "We found them, Mr. President. We are not alone." Dr. Alex Rodriguez had been waiting his whole life for this moment. He sat in his lab aboard the Horizon, staring at the data that changed everything. Real aliens, living, breathing, thinking beings from another world. His hands shook as he typed his report. The alien ship was beautiful. It moved through space like a silver fish swimming in an ocean of stars. When it opened communications, the voice that came through was unlike anything humans had ever heard. It spoke in musical tones that made everyone on the bridge stop and listen. "Greetings, children of Earth," the voice said. "We are the Zephyrian Empire. We welcome you to the greater community of worlds." Navigator Amy Clark plotted their course to the meeting point. Her fingers flew over the controls as she set coordinates for a space station the aliens had suggested. Engineer Ryan Hayes checked every system twice, making sure the Horizon would make a good first impression. Communications Officer Sam Parker worked to perfect the translation systems, knowing that every word would matter. Captain Bennett called a meeting of her senior staff. "This is what we trained for," she told them. "We represent all of humanity now. We show them who we are and what we believe in." Back on Earth, the news spread like wildfire. Aliens were real, and they wanted to meet. Ambassador Kate Williams packed her bags and prepared for the most important job in human history. She would speak for every person who had ever lived, every dream humanity had ever shared. Kate had spent 20 years learning how to make peace between different groups of people. She spoke 12 languages and understood how to find common ground between enemies. Now she would try to find common ground between species that had never met. The preparation took months. Scientists shared their knowledge freely, wanting to show the aliens how much humans had learned. Artists created new works to demonstrate human creativity. Musicians composed songs that told the story of their world. Every person on Earth contributed something to the gift they would offer to their new neighbors. Dr. Rodriguez prepared files about human biology, culture, and history. He included the bad parts too, the wars, the mistakes, the times when humans had failed each other. He believed honesty was the best way to start a friendship. "If we hide our past, they will discover it anyway," he told Kate during one of their planning sessions. "Better to show them that we learned from our errors." The Zephyrian representatives were waiting when the Horizon arrived at the meeting station. High Commander Vextar greeted the human delegation with what seemed like genuine warmth. He was tall and thin, with silver skin that reflected the station's lights. His eyes were large and dark, and when he smiled, his teeth were perfectly white. "Your species intrigues us," Vextar told Kate during their first formal meeting. You have achieved something remarkable. Peace without conquest. Most worlds must be forced into unity. You chose it freely. Kate felt proud as she shared humanity's story. She told them about the long journey from primitive tribes to a unified world government. She explained how humans had learned to solve problems with words instead of weapons, how they had chosen cooperation over competition. The aliens seemed impressed. They asked many questions about human technology, human art, and human ways of thinking. They were especially interested in Earth's government, which gave every person a voice in important decisions. Your democracy is unique, Vextar said. Most species find such systems too chaotic. How do you make decisions when everyone has an opinion? Kate explained how humans had learned to listen to each other, to find solutions that worked for everyone. She told them about the Great Assembly, where representatives from every nation met to solve global problems. She showed them videos of the debates, where people argued passionately but always with respect. The cultural exchange began immediately. Humans shared their music, and the Zephyrians played instruments that created sounds no human had ever imagined. Human poets read their works, while alien artists painted pictures that seemed to move and breathe. Dr. Rodriguez worked closely with Zephyrian scientists, comparing notes about their different worlds. He learned that the Empire included dozens of species from many star systems. Each had joined voluntarily, seeking the protection and prosperity that came with membership. We are explorers, like you, the Zephyrian chief scientist explained. We seek knowledge and friendship among the stars. Your species would be welcome in our community. The offer was everything humanity had hoped for. The Zephyrians promised trade agreements that would bring new technology to Earth. They offered to share medical knowledge that could extend human life by centuries. Most importantly, they invited humans to establish colonies on 3 frontier worlds. President Morrison called an emergency session of the Global Council. Representatives from every nation gathered to hear Kate's report and vote on humanity's response. The debate lasted 3 days, but the outcome was never in doubt. Humanity would join the galactic community. The first volunteer colonists signed up within hours of the announcement. Families like the Johnsons, the Millers, and the Browns saw a chance to build something new among the stars. They would be pioneers, carrying human values to distant worlds, New Denver, New Austin, and New Phoenix, the names chosen for humanity's first interstellar colonies. Each would house 1 million people, complete with farms, schools, hospitals, and everything needed to recreate Earth's peaceful society on alien soil. Governor Pete Anderson was chosen to lead New Denver. He was a practical man who had helped rebuild cities after the last war. His wife, Nancy, would manage the colony's agricultural program, while their children would be among the first humans born under an alien sun. The preparation took 2 years. Ships were built to carry the colonists and their supplies. Every detail was planned carefully, from the layout of the cities to the crops they would grow. The colonists trained for life on alien worlds, learning new skills and preparing for challenges they could not imagine. Captain Bennett commanded the colony fleet when it finally departed Earth. 60 ships carrying 3 million people, the largest migration in human history. As Earth fell away behind them, the colonists looked forward to their new homes with excitement and hope. The journey took 6 months through hyperspace. During the long trip, the colonists studied their new worlds and practiced the skills they would need. Children attended school while adults planned their new communities. Everyone worked together, united by the dream of carrying humanity's peaceful values to the stars. When they arrived at their destination, the Zephyrian Welcome Committee was waiting. Vextar himself greeted the colonists and wished them success in their new homes. The planets were beautiful, green worlds with blue skies and clean air, perfect for human life. The colonists landed and began building immediately. Within months, 3 thriving settlements existed where none had been before. Human children played under alien stars while their parents worked to create a better future for all. For 2 years, the colonies prospered. The humans grew crops, built schools, and raised their families in peace. They sent regular reports back to Earth, sharing their discoveries and their joy at being part of something larger than themselves. Everything seemed perfect. Humanity had found its place among the stars as peaceful neighbors and valuable friends. The future stretched ahead bright with promise, full of possibilities that no human had ever dared to dream. None of them knew that they were being watched. None of them suspected that their alien friends were making very different plans. The peace that had taken so long to build was about to be shattered in ways that would change the galaxy forever. The morning started like any other on New Denver. Governor Pete Anderson woke early and made coffee in his small kitchen. Through his window, he could see the construction crews already at work on the new hospital. Children walked to school carrying books and lunch boxes, just like children did on Earth. Nancy Anderson was in the fields checking the corn crop when the first ships appeared in the sky. She shaded her eyes and looked up, expecting to see the regular supply convoy from the Zephyrian trade station. Instead, she saw warships, hundreds of them, blocking out the sun. The attack began without warning. Blue fire rained from the sky, striking the school where human children were learning their morning lessons. The hospital burst into flames before the first patient could be treated. The marketplace where families bought their food became a crater in seconds. Pete ran to the emergency communications center as explosions shook the ground around him. His hands trembled as he activated the emergency beacon to Earth. The message was simple and terrible. "They're killing everyone. They never intended peace. Tell Earth to run." The transmission cut off as plasma fire destroyed the communication tower. Pete died trying to save a group of children trapped in the burning school. His last words were an apology to his wife, wherever she was. On New Austin, the colonists had 30 minutes more warning than New Denver. They used every second trying to save their families. Teachers led children to shelters that had been built to protect against storms, not military-grade weapons. Parents gathered their babies and ran for the hills. The shelters held for exactly 12 minutes against Zephyrian firepower. The aliens had studied human construction methods during the 2 years of false friendship. They knew exactly how much force was needed to break through human defenses. Commander Billy Thompson was visiting New Austin when the attack began. He had come to inspect the colony's defensive preparations that now seemed laughably inadequate. As plasma bolts destroyed everything around him, he managed to record a message on his personal device. "They knew our weaknesses. They studied us while pretending to be friends. This was planned from the beginning." Thompson died defending a group of civilians who were trying to reach the evacuation ships. The ships never launched. The aliens destroyed them on the ground to make sure no one could escape. New Phoenix lasted the longest. Colonel Maria Santos happened to be visiting her sister's family when the attack started. She immediately took command of the colony's small security force and organized a desperate defense. The colonists fought back with construction equipment and hunting rifles against plasma cannons and orbital bombardment. They had no chance, but they fought anyway. Every minute they held the aliens back meant more children might reach the emergency bunkers. Santos led the last stand at the colony's central square. 50 security officers and 100 civilian volunteers against 1,000 alien soldiers. They held their ground for 2 hours before the plasma fire finally silenced their guns. The bunkers held another day before the aliens broke through with specialized equipment. When the doors finally opened, only silence came out. Admiral Helen Foster was aboard the space station Unity when the reports started coming in. She had been reviewing supply schedules when Lieutenant Danny Cooper burst into her office with a communication tablet in his hands. "Ma'am, we're receiving emergency signals from all 3 colonies." Helen read the messages as they came in. Each report was worse than the last. First contact lost, then orbital bombardment, then systematic destruction of all human settlements. The final transmission came from an automated probe that had been monitoring New Denver from orbit. The message was 5 seconds of video that showed Zephyrian soldiers moving through the ruins, checking to make sure no humans had survived. Helen had fought in Earth's last war 30 years ago. She had seen terrible things, and done worse things in the name of peace. But nothing had prepared her for the cold efficiency of what she was watching. The aliens were not angry. They were not scared. They were simply doing a job. They checked each body twice to make sure it was dead. They used scanners to detect any humans hiding in the rubble. When they found survivors, they killed them quickly and moved on. The probe recorded everything before the aliens detected it and shot it down. 5 hours of systematic genocide, broadcast in high definition. 3 million humans dead, including thousands of children who had never hurt anyone. Captain Lisa Bennett was returning from a survey mission when she received the emergency recall order. Her ship, the UES Horizon, had been studying a nearby nebula when the call came in. She pushed her engines to maximum speed and arrived at New Denver 12 hours too late. The planet was still burning. Atmosphere processors that had taken 2 years to build were smoking ruins. The carefully planned cities were gone, replaced by glass craters where the orbital bombardment had been focused. Bennett ordered her crew to scan for survivors. Dr. Alex Rodriguez worked frantically to detect any human life signs on the planet below. Engineer Ryan Hayes checked every sensor twice, hoping the equipment was wrong. Navigator Amy Clark found her voice first. "There's nothing, Captain. No life signs, no structures, no communications. It's all gone." The Horizon's crew watched in silence as Zephyrian ships finished their work. The aliens were thorough. They destroyed every human artifact, every building, every sign that humans had ever lived on this world. When they were done, New Denver looked like it had never been colonized at all. Communications Officer Sam Parker intercepted alien transmissions during the cleanup operation. The messages were being broadcast throughout the Zephyrian Empire, reaching dozens of species across multiple star systems. The transmissions were advertisements. Entertainment broadcasts. The systematic murder of 3 million humans was being presented as a sporting event for alien audiences. Commentators discussed the efficiency of the operation. Viewers rated their favorite moments of destruction. The most popular broadcast was titled Pest Control, Removing the Human Contamination. It showed highlights of the attack, including footage of human children running from plasma fire. The alien narrator explained how humans had been eliminated before their dangerous ideas could spread. Dr. Rodriguez recorded everything, every transmission, every image, every word. His hands shook as he cataloged the evidence of humanity's first genocide. The peaceful xenobiologist who had dreamed of friendship among the stars now documented the systematic murder of his own species. The Horizon limped back to Earth carrying news that would change everything. Captain Bennett looked at her crew and saw her own shock reflected in their faces. The people who had planned humanity's peaceful expansion into space now carried the evidence of their greatest failure. On Earth, President Jake Morrison was meeting with the Global Council when the emergency session was called. Representatives from every nation gathered to hear Admiral Foster's report from Unity Station. The evidence was displayed on screens around the assembly hall. Video of the attacks, audio of alien broadcasts, photos of the devastated colonies. 3 hours of documentation that destroyed 50 years of human progress toward peace. The Alien Alliance had recorded a formal declaration that was broadcast throughout their empire. High Commander Vexitar, who had greeted human diplomats with smiles and promises, now spoke with cold hatred. "The human contamination has been successfully removed from our territory," he announced. These creatures represented a dangerous threat to galactic stability. Their concepts of universal equality and individual freedom are viruses that would have destroyed the natural order of civilization. The declaration continued with clinical precision. Humans were classified as a disruptive species, whose elimination was necessary for galactic peace. Any world that harbored humans would be subject to the same treatment as the colonies. The message ended with a warning directed at Earth itself. The remaining concentration of human contamination will be addressed in due time. Resistance will only prolong the inevitable cleansing process. Morrison stood before the assembly as the room erupted in angry voices. Representatives shouted in a dozen languages, demanding immediate action. Some called for negotiation, others demanded war. A few suggested surrender to save what remained of humanity. The president raised his hand for silence. When the room quieted, his voice carried clearly to every corner. "They have made their position clear," he said. "They believe we are a contamination to be eliminated. They have murdered 3 million of our people, including children who never harmed anyone. They plan to finish the job by destroying Earth itself." Morrison paused and looked around the room at faces that reflected his own determination. "We offered them friendship, and they answered with genocide. We extended our hand in peace, and they used our trust to plan our destruction. They have chosen war, and now they will learn what war means to humanity." The vote was unanimous. Every nation on Earth agreed to activate Protocol 7, the emergency plan that had been hoped would never be needed. The peaceful Earth Federation would become something the galaxy had never seen before. As representatives rushed to their capitals to begin preparations, Morrison remained alone in the assembly hall. He looked at the empty seats and thought about the colonists who would never come home. 3 million people who had died believing in humanity's dream of peace among the stars. The transformation of Earth began at dawn on the day after the vote. President Jake Morrison signed Executive Order 2387, and everything changed in an instant. Factories stopped making civilian goods and started producing military equipment. Universities converted their research labs into weapons development centers. Even the children's playgrounds were turned into training grounds for the citizen militias that would defend Earth. General Robert Kane had been tending his garden when the call came. At 72 years old, he thought his fighting days were over. He had ended Earth's last war 30 years ago and retired to a small farm where he grew vegetables and wrote poetry. Now the planet needed him again. Kane stood in his greenhouse, looking at the tomatoes he had been growing for the colony ships. The plants were healthy and strong, ready to feed families who would never need food again. He picked one perfect red tomato and crushed it in his fist, letting the juice run between his fingers. The old soldier called his former staff within an hour. Colonel Maria Santos was the first to answer. She had been teaching at the military academy, training peacekeepers who would never keep peace. Her voice was steady when she accepted her new assignment as Kane's chief of staff. Major Chris Taylor left his job as a construction foreman and reported for duty the same day. Commander Billy Thompson abandoned his research into sustainable farming and took command of the Naval Reactivation Program. These were the people who had helped Kane end the old wars. Now they would help him begin a new one. Dr. Elizabeth Morgan received unlimited funding and unlimited authority to weaponize every piece of technology humanity possessed. She had spent 20 years developing medical equipment and space exploration tools. Within a week, she was converting hospital scanners into targeting systems and mining lasers into ship-mounted weapons. The work proceeded with terrifying efficiency. Humans had always been good at organization, but now they organized for war with the same systematic precision they had once used for peace. Every resource was cataloged. Every citizen was assigned a role. Every piece of equipment was evaluated for military potential. The orbital shipyards that had built exploration vessels began construction on the Nemesis-class destroyers. These ships were designed with one purpose: to kill aliens as efficiently as possible. Dr. Morgan's team stripped away everything that was not directly related to combat. No diplomatic suites, no scientific laboratories, no crew comfort areas, just weapons, armor, and the equipment needed to aim them. Captain Lisa Bennett was promoted to Commodore and given command of the first battle fleet. She stood in the shipyard and watched her old ship, the Horizon, being converted from an exploration vessel into a command ship. The peaceful bridge where she had planned first contact was now a war room designed to coordinate orbital bombardment. Her crew adapted to their new roles with grim determination. Dr. Alex Rodriguez, who had dreamed of studying alien cultures, now studied alien weaknesses. Navigator Amy Clark plotted courses to enemy worlds instead of new discoveries. Engineer Ryan Hayes modified engines for maximum speed and weapons for maximum destruction. Communications Officer Sam Parker had the most important job of all. He analyzed the alien transmissions that had celebrated human genocide, learning everything he could about Zephyrian technology and tactics. Every broadcast became intelligence data. Every entertainment program revealed enemy capabilities. The planet-wide mobilization was unlike anything in human history. 12 billion people united by a single purpose: making the aliens pay for what they had done. Volunteers lined up at recruitment centers faster than the military could process them. Everyone wanted to contribute to the war effort. Jenny Miller had been a school teacher before the colonies were destroyed. Her brother Tom had died on New Austin, along with his wife and 3 children. She enlisted as a Marine and trained 18 hours a day, learning to use weapons that could crack alien armor. Her students' parents joined her at the firing range, all of them preparing for the day when they could face the murderers of their children. Old rivalries disappeared overnight. Nations that had competed for resources now shared everything freely. The factories of every continent worked together to build the war machine that would carry human vengeance to the stars. Languages and cultures that had been separate for thousands of years merged into a single war cry. Agricultural worlds were converted to training grounds where millions of volunteers learned the art of warfare. The peaceful farmers who had fed the world now learned to fight with the same dedication they had once used to grow crops. Rural communities that had never seen soldiers became bases for the largest army in human history. Kane established his headquarters in what had been the Global Peace Institute. The irony was not lost on him as he planned humanity's first interstellar war from a building dedicated to preventing conflict. The conference rooms where diplomats had once negotiated treaties now echoed with discussions of orbital bombardment patterns and alien extermination protocols. The general gathered his staff for their first major strategy session exactly 1 month after the genocide. Maps of the Zephyrian Empire covered every wall. Intelligence reports detailed enemy fleet positions and civilian populations. The target list included every world that had participated in or celebrated the murder of human colonists. "We are not fighting a war," Kane told his officers. "Wars are between equals who have legitimate disagreements. This is an extermination campaign. They chose to hunt us like animals. Now we will show them what real predators look like." Colonel Santos presented the intelligence analysis. The Zephyrian Empire included 47 inhabited worlds and 16 species. Their military numbered approximately 8 million soldiers equipped with plasma weapons and energy shields. Their fleet consisted of 6,000 ships ranging from scout vessels to battle cruisers. "On paper, they outnumber us 10 to 1, Santos reported. "Their technology appears more advanced than ours in several key areas. Standard military doctrine would classify this as an impossible mission." Kane smiled for the first time since receiving his orders. "Standard military doctrine assumes we're fighting other humans. These aliens have never faced a species that chose peace not from weakness, but from knowing what we're capable of when we choose war." The technological revolution proceeded even faster than the military buildup. Dr. Morgan's teams worked around the clock to turn every human innovation into a weapon. Medical scanners became targeting systems that could track enemy soldiers through walls. Mining equipment became siege weapons that could crack planet-killing fortifications. The breakthrough came when Morgan's team analyzed the alien broadcasts more carefully. The Zephyrians had made a critical error. They had shown their technology in detail while celebrating their victory. Every weapon, every shield, every piece of equipment was recorded in high definition and broadcast across their empire. Human engineers studied the footage frame by frame. They identified weaknesses in alien armor, gaps in their defensive systems, and flaws in their weapon designs. The aliens had given humanity a complete technical manual for defeating them, thinking that their victims would never have the chance to use it. The first Nemesis-class destroyer completed construction after only 6 months of work. The USS Vengeance was a kilometer long and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. When Kane toured the ship before its maiden voyage, he found weapons that made alien technology look primitive. The ship's main gun could punch through any known material at a range of half a light year. The secondary batteries fired projectiles that moved at 30% of light speed. The defensive systems could stop anything short of a direct hit from a planet-killer weapon. Most importantly, the ship could manufacture its own ammunition, using raw materials gathered from asteroids or enemy hulks. Dr. Morgan had designed the Vengeance to fight continuously for years without returning to base for supplies. Commodore Bennett took the ship on its first test flight to the edge of the solar system. The crew performed perfectly, hitting every target with devastating accuracy. When she returned to Earth, Bennett submitted a report that made Kane smile again. "The ship performs beyond all expectations," she wrote. "We are ready to show the aliens what human engineering can accomplish when we put our minds to destruction instead of creation." The recruitment drive exceeded every projection. 15 million humans volunteered for military service in the first year. Another 50 million joined the Civilian Support Corps. The remaining population worked in factories and farms, producing everything needed to sustain the largest military operation in galactic history. Sergeant Danny Cooper had been a police officer before the war. He enlisted the day after seeing footage of alien soldiers killing human children. His training was intense and focused, every lesson designed to make him more efficient at killing the enemy. He learned to use weapons that could penetrate alien armor, tactics that could overwhelm alien positions, and techniques that could break alien morale. Lieutenant Nicole Davis commanded a company of former teachers, doctors, and artists who had all lost family members in the genocide. They trained together with grim determination, knowing that their mission was not conquer. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Zephyrian territory, like death itself arriving for collection. Commodore Lisa Bennett stood on the bridge of her flagship and watched as 200 human warships took formation around her. Each vessel carried weapons that had been designed with one purpose: to make aliens pay for the murder of human children. The enemy was waiting. 800 Zephyrian ships hung in space around Kepler Station, their hulls gleaming silver in the light of the local star. Admiral Kexron commanded the defense fleet from his massive battlecruiser, confident that superior numbers would crush the human attack before it could begin. Bennett opened communications to the alien fleet. Her message was broadcast on all frequencies so that every ship in the area could hear her words clearly. I am Commodore Lisa Bennett of the United Earth Fleet. You participated in the genocide of 3 million human civilians. You murdered children who had never harmed anyone. Today you pay for those crimes. Admiral Kexron responded with the same arrogance that had led his people to underestimate humanity. Surrender now, contamination. You are outnumbered 4-1. Your primitive weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Return to your dying world and await your inevitable cleansing. Bennett smiled as she cut the transmission. She had learned many things during her years as an explorer, but the most important lesson was that intelligent beings often made very stupid assumptions. The aliens assumed that because humans had chosen peace, they must be weak. They were about to learn the difference. All ships engage the enemy. Show them what we learned from their mistake. The Battle of Kepler Station lasted exactly 14 minutes and 37 seconds. When the weapons fire stopped, the human fleet had lost 3 destroyers and suffered minor damage to 12 other vessels. The Zephyrian fleet no longer existed. The aliens had prepared for the kind of battle they understood. Ships closing to medium range and exchanging fire until one side retreated or surrendered. They had not prepared for humans who had studied every detail of alien technology and designed weapons specifically to exploit their weaknesses. Human ships opened fire from distances that alien sensors could barely detect. The projectiles moved so fast that alien point defense systems could not track them. When the rounds hit, they penetrated alien shields like they were made of paper instead of energy. Admiral Kexron's flagship lasted longest, its heavy armor absorbing punishment that would have destroyed smaller vessels. He broadcast desperate pleas for reinforcement as human weapons systematically stripped away his defenses. The end came when Bennett's ship fired a single shot that punched through the battlecruiser's hull from bow to stern. The human fleet advanced through the wreckage. Without slowing, Bennett ordered her communications officer to record everything: the burning alien ships, the debris fields, the complete destruction of an enemy force that had outnumbered them 4-1. The recording would be broadcast throughout human space to show Earth that their vengeance had begun. News of the battle spread panic through the Zephyrian Empire faster than their fastest ships could carry warnings. How had the weak humans destroyed a superior force with such minimal losses? The question haunted alien commanders as they tried to prepare defenses for an enemy they no longer understood. General Robert Kane received Bennett's battle report while reviewing invasion plans at his headquarters on Earth. The smile that crossed his face was not pleasant to see. His staff watched as the old soldier read the details of humanity's first victory against the species that had murdered their children. 14 minutes, Kane said quietly. They lasted 14 minutes against ships they outnumbered 4-1. Send word to all fleet commanders. The aliens are not as dangerous as they pretended to be. Admiral Helen Foster launched Operation A. Payback 3 days after Kepler Station fell. 50 human battle groups struck 50 different alien military targets simultaneously. Each attack followed the same pattern: appear without warning, destroy everything that moved, record the results for broadcast back to Earth. The siege of Vextar Prime began when Admiral Foster's personal fleet arrived in orbit around the Zephyrian homeworld. The planet was defended by orbital platforms that had never been challenged in 1,000 years of alien expansion. The platforms mounted weapons that could crack continents and shields that had stopped every previous attack. Foster studied the defenses from her command ship and smiled grimly. Dr. Elizabeth Morgan had designed new weapons specifically for this moment. Siege guns that could penetrate any known defensive system. The orbital platforms were about to discover that human engineering had advanced beyond anything in their databases. The bombardment lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the proud defenses of the Zephyrian homeworld were floating debris in rapidly decaying orbits. The capital city's shields flickered and died as power stations exploded under precise human targeting. High Commander Vextar watched from his palace as human ships descended through the atmosphere like falling stars. He had ordered the genocide of human civilians, believing that his people faced weak philosophers who posed no military threat. Now he saw ships that moved with mechanical precision, weapons that fired with impossible accuracy, and tactics that showed no mercy for anyone who stood in their way. The ground invasion began at dawn. Human Marines, led by Sergeant Danny Cooper and Lieutenant Nicole Davis, landed in drop pods that scattered across the capital city like deadly rain. Each Marine carried weapons that could penetrate alien armor and training that had been focused on one objective: killing aliens as efficiently as possible. Sergeant Cooper kicked down the door of an alien command bunker and found 6 Zephyrian officers huddled around a communication console. They looked at him with large, dark eyes that showed confusion and fear. These creatures had watched recordings of human children being burned alive. They had celebrated the systematic murder of 3 million civilians. Cooper's weapon fired 6 times. 6 aliens died without having time to surrender. He moved to the next bunker and repeated the process. Room by room, building by building, the human Marines swept through the capital city like a plague designed specifically to kill aliens. Lieutenant Davis led her company against the Imperial Guard, the elite troops who had been trained to protect the Zephyrian leadership. The guards fought with desperate courage, but their plasma weapons could not penetrate human armor, and their tactics could not match human training. The battle for the palace lasted 12 hours. When it ended, Davis stood in the throne room where Vextar had announced humanity's extermination. The alien leader was gone, evacuated to a bunker deep underground. His throne was a twisted mass of metal, where a human explosive had demonstrated the futility of alien defenses. Major Chris Taylor commanded the siege of the underground command complex, where Vextar and his staff were hiding. The bunker had been built to withstand orbital bombardment and direct nuclear attack. It had never been tested against humans who were willing to dig through solid rock to reach their enemies. Taylor's engineers used mining equipment that had been converted into siege weapons. They drilled through layers of armor and concrete with tools designed to extract ore from asteroids. When they reached the final blast door, they planted charges that had been calculated to penetrate any material the aliens might use. The explosion echoed through the tunnels like thunder underground. When the smoke cleared, Taylor led his troops into the command center, where the architects of human genocide were waiting. Vextar stood at the center of the room, no longer the confident commander who had ordered the death of children. "You were supposed to be weak," the alien said as human soldiers surrounded him. "Our intelligence indicated that your species was incapable of organized violence. You chose peace over conquest. How did you become so efficient at war?" Taylor looked at the creature who had murdered 3 million humans and felt no sympathy. "We chose peace because we knew what we were capable of when we chose war. You forced us to remember." The trial of Vextar and his staff lasted 1 day. Human judges heard evidence of the systematic genocide, reviewed the broadcasts that had celebrated human deaths, and examined the orders that had condemned 3 million civilians to execution. The verdict was unanimous, and the sentence was immediate. Commander Billy Thompson oversaw the execution. Vextar died the same way as the children on New Denver, quickly and without ceremony. His body was left in the ruins of his palace as a message to any aliens who might consider following his example. The conquest of the Zephyrian Empire proceeded with mechanical efficiency. Each alien world that had participated in or celebrated the genocide faced the same fate: systematic destruction of military targets followed by occupation by human forces. Civilian populations that surrendered were allowed to live under human administration. Those that resisted were eliminated without negotiation. The Battle of Kethmaron lasted 3 days and ended when human orbital weapons turned the planet's capital into a glass crater. The defense of Yex Beta collapsed when alien commanders realized that surrender was their only chance of survival. One by one, the proud worlds of the Empire fell to human forces that showed no mercy to anyone who had participated in genocide. Dr. Rodriguez, who had once dreamed of peaceful contact with alien species, now cataloged their weak-kneed president Jake Morrison stood in the ruins of what had once been the Zephyrian Imperial Palace, the great hall where alien emperors had ruled. Dozens of worlds was now a broken shell of twisted metal and shattered stone. Human engineers worked around him, preparing the space for a very different kind of ceremony. 6 months had passed since the surrender. 6 months of trials, executions, and the systematic reorganization of 47 conquered worlds. The galaxy that had celebrated human genocide now trembled at the mention of Earth's name. Representatives from 38 alien species knelt in the ruined throne room, waiting for Morrison to speak. These were the leaders of civilizations that had existed for thousands of years, beings who had ruled star systems when humans were still learning to make fire. Now they knelt before a species they had dismissed as weak contamination. Morrison looked at each alien face and saw the same expression, fear mixed with desperate hope that humanity might show them the mercy they had denied to human children. The president thought about the 3 million colonists who had died trusting in alien friendship, and his voice carried no warmth when he finally spoke. You participated in genocide. You celebrated the murder of our children. You declared us contamination that needed to be eliminated. Today you learn what real contamination looks like when it takes control. The terms of surrender were read aloud by Admiral Helen Foster, whose grandson had burned alive on New Austin. Each condition was non-negotiable, each requirement absolute. The aliens would accept human authority or face the same fate as their former masters. All military forces were to be disbanded immediately. Weapons of war would be destroyed under human supervision. Former soldiers would be retrained for peaceful occupations or face execution as war criminals. No alien would be permitted to carry arms without specific human authorization. All governments were dissolved. Human administrators would be appointed to rule each world according to Earth's principles of justice and equality. Alien officials who had participated in genocide would be tried and executed. Those who had opposed the murder of humans would be considered for minor positions under human oversight. War reparations would be paid in the form of labor and resources. Every alien world would contribute to the reconstruction of the destroyed human colonies. The work would continue until Earth was satisfied that justice had been served. Captain Tony Mitchell was appointed as the first human governor of the former Zephyrian homeworld. He stood where alien emperors had once sat and addressed the population that had cheered for human deaths. You watched our children die for entertainment, Mitchell told them. You celebrated genocide as a sporting event. Now you will learn to live under the same principles you tried to destroy: equality, justice, and protection for the innocent. The new administration moved quickly to establish order. Human values became planetary law overnight. The rigid caste system that had divided alien society for millennia was abolished. Species that had been enslaved for generations found themselves free under human protection. Those who had profited from oppression discovered that their status meant nothing to their new rulers. Dr. Alex Rodriguez, who had once prepared for peaceful first contact, now oversaw the rehabilitation of conquered worlds. His job was to root out the cultural practices that had made genocide seem acceptable to alien minds. Schools were reorganized to teach human concepts of individual worth and universal rights. The task was enormous. Entire civilizations had been built on the idea that some species were superior to others. Aliens had been taught from birth that weaker races existed only to serve the strong. The humans who had been slaughtered were considered inferior beings whose deaths were meaningless. Rodriguez established education centers on every world where alien children learned new ways of thinking. They studied human history, including the wars that had taught humanity the true cost of hatred. They learned about the peace that humans had built and the price that had been paid when aliens destroyed it. Adult aliens who resisted the new education were sent to labor camps where they worked to rebuild the human colonies their people had destroyed. The work was hard and the conditions were harsh, but survivors were eventually released if they demonstrated genuine acceptance of human authority. Those who continued to resist faced military tribunals. Colonel Maria Santos, who had lost her family on New Phoenix, presided over courts that showed no mercy to unrepentant war criminals. Aliens who had participated in genocide or who refused to accept human rule were executed with the same efficiency they had once used against human children. The trials proceeded systematically across all conquered worlds. Evidence was overwhelming. The aliens had recorded their crimes in detail, thinking that no one would ever hold them accountable. Now their own broadcasts became the proof that condemned them. High Commander Zextar, who had personally ordered the bombardment of New Denver, was tried on the anniversary of the massacre. The evidence against him included video of his command ship firing on human schools and hospitals. He died the same day his trial concluded, executed by the same methods his forces had used against human civilians. Admiral Foster was appointed Supreme Commander of Galactic Peace, a position that carried absolute authority to prevent future genocides. Her fleets patrolled every system, and her reputation ensured compliance without the need for constant enforcement. The former enemies of humanity quickly learned that resistance was futile. Foster's ships appeared wherever aliens gathered in suspicious numbers. Her Marines investigated any reports of species persecution or systematic violence. Her courts tried anyone who threatened the peace that had been purchased with human blood. The Keth-Moran incident demonstrated the reach of human authority. A group of alien nationalists attempted to organize resistance on a remote world near the galactic rim. They believed that distance would protect them from human retaliation. Foster's response was swift and absolute. A single human destroyer appeared in orbit around Keth-Moran and demanded the immediate surrender of all resistance leaders. When the aliens refused, the ship demonstrated why the galaxy now feared human displeasure. The capital city was evacuated before the bombardment began. Human forces gave civilians 6 hours to reach safety before their weapons spoke. The city where resistance had been planned became a crater that could be seen from orbit. The resistance leaders were found in the rubble and executed on the spot. The message was clear to every alien who might consider challenging human authority. Distance provided no protection. Numbers offered no advantage. The species that had chosen peace for 50 years would enforce it for 50 more, regardless of the cost to anyone who threatened it. Lieutenant Nicole Davis, who had fought through the ruins of the Imperial Palace, now commanded the peacekeeping force on Yexa Beta. Her troops maintained order among aliens who had once considered humans fit only for extermination. The irony was not lost on her as former masters served former victims. The transformation was remarkable. Worlds that had been ruled by fear and oppression became models of the equality that humans had tried to offer in friendship. Species that had been enemies for millennia learned to cooperate under human supervision. The rigid hierarchies that had justified genocide were replaced by systems that valued every life. Trade resumed under human direction. Alien merchants who had once profited from weapons of war now carried goods that improved life for ordinary citizens. Technology that had been used to slaughter humans was converted to serve peaceful purposes. The same factories that had built genocide ships now produced medical equipment and agricultural tools. The economic transformation was as complete as the political one. Human administrators ensured that resources were distributed fairly rather than hoarded by ruling classes. Worlds that had starved while their masters lived in luxury found themselves prosperous under human guidance. Sergeant Danny Cooper, who had kicked down doors in the Imperial Palace, now trained alien police forces to maintain order without oppression. The same weapons that had killed alien soldiers were used to protect alien civilians from the criminals and tyrants who had once ruled them. The training was intensive and unforgiving. Alien officers learned that their job was to serve all citizens, equally regardless of species or social status. Those who showed favoritism or brutality were dismissed immediately. Those who demonstrated genuine commitment to justice were promoted to positions of responsibility. Commander Billy Thompson oversaw the construction of memorials on each conquered world. The monuments recorded the names of every human who had died in the genocide, along with detailed accounts of how they had lived and why they had died. Alien children were required to visit these memorials and learn about the cost of hatred. The memorials served as constant reminders of why humans ruled and aliens obeyed. They showed that genocide had consequences that lasted longer than the lives of those who committed it. They proved that some crimes were too terrible to forgive and too important to forget. Commodore Lisa Bennett, who had commanded the fleet that began humanity's vengeance, now explored the galaxy as she had always dreamed. But her ships carried weapons alongside scientific instruments, and her crew, in